welcome back to the Gemini Archives, everybody.
Welcome back.
So, today is the day.
Yep. For all 5 people who have been waiting for this.
With bated breath, we're doing it. Before we get into it, though, couple of things. One, and we didn't mention this in the last episode, we have new artwork.
Yes.
So, thank you so much to, and I don't remember his name. Oh my God, I'm drawing a huge blank. He will be credited in the description, who did the artwork for us. He also did the artwork for our friend Mike, who was on a few episodes ago, for his new show, Welcome to Hell. So check that out too. That is on YouTube. As of this recording, he just put up the second episode yesterday. So today's the 6th. So we put it up yesterday, June 5th. There's 2 episodes. You should go listen to them. They're pretty cool playlists if you're into that kind of thing.
Hell yeah.
And yeah, so we got some new artwork and it looks so much better.
I think it was time for an upgrade because we haven't changed the artwork since 2018. So
right. So it
6 years is a little long. Yeah.
Yeah. We needed a facelift. So
yeah.
We hope you enjoy the artwork too. We're very excited about it. And like I said in the last episode too, like, sorry that it's taken us a little bit to like put out episodes. I literally had shingles, so sorry about it.
Megan had shingles. I was getting over bronchitis, and now we're putting out more episodes now because next couple weeks I'm going to be busy. So
right. Our parents are flying out to Utah to go visit Lauren for like a week and a half or something. Long time. So they're going to be there in that time. We're not going to be able to record. We probably won't have any new episodes until maybe like the second week of July, I would say.
Yeah, or maybe even the week after that. So.
Yeah. So it's going to be a minute. So we're taking a brief hiatus because Lauren's going to be busy and, you know,
sorry.
And we're just not going to be able to record.
Right. And then in August, I'm moving. I finally got approved for a new place. And my husband and I are getting the fuck out of this apartment.
Thank God.
Yeah. I think I mentioned it in the last episode with Francisco, but yeah, we just got approved for a new place not too long ago, and we move out the end of August. So,
which is exciting.
I cannot wait. It's going to be quieter. We have a townhouse, so no one's living above or below us. It's just next to us, and we're the end unit. So only one neighbor versus the 5 that I have now.
Thank the Lord. Because I know you've been dealing with that bullshit.
I know. And I feel like I complain about it every episode, but we've been living here for almost 3 years. I hate this place. I hate it. You know? Like every day something's going on here. But anyway, enough about that. I got a new place. So in the end of August too, there's going to be a little bit of a hiatus for just a little bit while I move and set up all my new stuff. But that's about it otherwise. And then October, I'm going to be in Connecticut. So maybe we could do like an IRL podcast while I'm there.
Which would rule. I don't know how, because you have all the equipment, unless you bring it with you.
I don't know if I can on a plane. So
yeah, so we'll figure it out. If not, then
if anything, I'll just bring my computer mic.
True, you could bring that. Yeah. If anything, like we're still gonna do like spooky season stuff because that's our bread and butter. So we
love doing that for the podcast.
We're gonna have some cool things planned. If you're sick of the analog horror stuff, we'll do something different. Let us know. Like, communicate. Hi, hello. Like, because
if you want us to just bullshit for an episode, we could do that too. You know.
Yeah. So it's up to you. We're leaving it in your hands, and if nobody says anything, we're gonna do whatever the fuck we want, and you're gonna have to live with it. So, yeah. So that's kind of like our plans for the next few months or so. So we're excited about it.
Yep. That's just some housekeeping you wanted to get out of the way before all the fun stuff.
Yes, now that we
In the
swept the
second
floor,
half. Yep.
swept the floor and cleaned the windows. Now to the good stuff.
Polish the furniture.
Waxed our witches, as it were.
Witches to wax.
If you get that reference, Lord, please.
If you get that reference, you can hang out with us. Like,
Yeah.
you're cool.
If you know where that is from, put it down in the comments. Let us know.
Ghosts to bust, witches to wax.
Ghosts to bust. Rest in peace.
Yeah.
So,
yeah,
it's happening today.
Oh yeah, it's happening. We've been so. Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
We have been so into these liminal spaces and analog horror things recently that we are just going for the jugular today, and we are talking about the big ones. You know, well, the biggest
head honcho.
one, the head honcho, our main guy, our little dude.
And it's good timing too, because so today's June 6th. As of our birthday, May 28th is when this was discovered. They found the real life location for the Backrooms after years and years of searching. Mm-hmm. It has finally happened. They figured out where it came from through like digging through internet archives that don't even exist anymore. Yeah. I don't even know how these people did it, but you know,
the internet, when they're determined, when the internet is determined, they will find it.
True. So I'm going to link a video that I watched the other day about it, where someone, you know, it's a brief video, it's under 10 minutes, where they explain, you know, everything about how it was found, where it is, you know, if it's even still there. I don't think it's still there. All I know is that it's in Wisconsin.
Mm-hmm.
And it used to be a furniture store, and then it turned into like an indoor, like, racing track or something like that.
Yeah.
And then it was closed down in like the early 2000s and has just been sitting there ever since. So it's surreal that they finally found it. I remember because we reference him a lot, and we're going to be talking about them today, Nick and Ryan, because they're the ones that created Liminal Land. So Ryan is Nexpo, and you sent me the Nexpo Twitter when, you know, they discovered the Backrooms, and he was losing his collective shit.
Yeah, he was so excited. He's like, oh my God, in like all capitals, you know?
Dude, I was losing my collective shit. It was like, happy birthday to us. We found the Backrooms. Yay.
Hell yeah. So that was the best gift. That and getting my new apartment was the best gift I could have asked for on my birthday this year.
Dude, I know. Our birthday this year was like mellow. Like, I saw my family on Memorial Day the day before, and it was just rainy and gross, and you know, we couldn't really do much of anything because we were all stuck inside. So I mean, it was still, you know, nice to see everyone and hang out or whatever, but on our actual birthday, we just like, we gamed a little bit, we talked a little bit.
Yeah, Megan and I were on Discord, and we were just watching YouTube videos, and I played games, and we played games together. Because I had no idea until we went into Discord that you could play games through Discord. Yeah. And it was like mini golf and like chess and all this like random stuff. And we were just playing games. And then I played Portal 2 because, one, it's my favorite. And two, there's a special, by the way, I have Cheez-Its, just so you know.
Oh, good.
I have the Cheez-Its. And we always eat Cheez-Its and play Portal 2. And Megan hand feeds me the Cheez-Its while I'm playing Portal 2.
I do.
So, it's great.
It's our favorite pastime. Like, how many nights, like, I would go into, like, Lauren's room and be like, hey, do you want to, like, play Portal for me? Because I'm, like, sad. And it would just make me feel better. I don't know what it is about Portal. Quick side tangent. I don't know what it is about Portal that gives me the warm fuzzies. If it's just, like, because in its own right, it's, like, a liminal space because it's just open and there's, like, nothing there.
Well, it's like an abandoned old factory. Well, not factory, but like a
facility.
facility. Yeah, it was like a science facility that started as making, no joke, rings for shower curtains, and then evolved more and more scientifically because Cave Johnson was insane. And basically, he took his then wife, which is very canon in the game. They don't say it explicitly, but he was married to either wife or girlfriend, and put her brain into a robot, and that is GLaDOS, who runs the entire facility.
Right.
And they hardwired her to be so maniacal that she flooded the entire facility with neurotoxin. I'm sure so many of you know this story, but for those who don't, this is the premise of Portal. Flooded the entire facility with neurotoxin, killed everybody, and she's the only one ruling there except for your character, who was in like a stasis, basically, and has been for a long time. And so basically the whole place is fucking empty, except for those two, and like other robots, and like that's it. So
it's crazy. I love it.
It's located in Michigan, and it is miles and miles and miles beneath the surface of the earth, just full of all these empty rooms and death traps rooms and like all this shit, and it's all like cold and like, you know, like a facility, you know, like metal floors and big blocky walls, and it's all gray, you know.
Yeah.
Except for your portal gun, which is red, orange and blue. So,
and honestly, it qualifies as like a liminal space.
Yeah, there's liminal spaces in there.
It's like a precursor to the Backrooms, even.
Mm-hmm.
Because you just go from room to room, and each room gets weirder and fucking. There's like something chasing you. It's like there's a lot of parallels. So
yeah, and there's no one in sight except an evil AI who watches you do it. So it's unnerving.
So yeah, I know, I love Portal. Like, just it's nostalgic for us because you've played it for so many years, and it's like
over a decade. I started playing it when the second game came out in 2012, but the first game came out in 2007, I think, and it was meant to be just a small little game in basically a compilation of games called the Orange Box for Xbox, and it had like Half-Life 2 Episode 2, Team Fortress 2, and then there was Portal. People did not expect it to blow up like it did, and it did.
Yeah.
So.
And I remember you had the Orange Box.
Yeah.
And then you were like, I need the second game. And then it appeared.
Yes.
So
it was awesome.
I know. And every time like Lauren has come home to like visit since you've moved, you've played Portal.
Yep.
Like, that's just a thing with us. So, and I've played co-op with her, but I am not good with like Xbox controllers and shit like that. I don't know what I'm doing. Like, I can hardly handle the NES controller with 4 buttons on it. Yeah. Like, I can't. I don't know what is wrong with me. My brain, it's like, oh, pull this and push this at this. It's like, I can't do that. You know, my brain, I'm serious. I can't do that. I have horrible depth perception. So you're like, shoot a portal, and I shoot it like 18 feet away from where you want me to. I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing. Like, I'm so bad. I'm telling you, one of these days when we can figure it out, we're going to post some videos of just like playing video games, and I will show you. I am not even like exaggerating or hamming it up for the camera or anything. I genuinely am that bad, you know?
Meg, it's okay.
No, I'm serious. Like,
you just gotta play them more, because I was that bad too. And the more I played, the better I got, you know?
See, I'm not much of a gamer though. Like,
well, that's what I mean. You played The Sims, and I
do play The Sims. The Sims is my speed, where I can do things at my own pace, and I don't have to worry.
It's point and click, you know? There's not too many, like, you can use keyboard controls, but you don't have to. So.
Right. So, yeah, we'll post videos at some point of us playing games and shit, and you'll watch Lauren whoop my ass every time.
Sorry.
Because she will not, like, let me win, ever.
I try. Megan, I literally try to let you win.
I'm that bad to where you try to let me win, and I still can't.
Well, I'm sorry. I mean...
No, I know. I'm kidding. But, like, you know, we played some games, like, on our birthday. I think I won 2 Lauren won the rest. So
I'm sorry.
Lauren, it is so early in the episode.
I'm sorry. It is 9 a.m. here, almost 10. So
it's almost noon here. It's 11:45.
And I'm not even tired. That's the thing. I'm not even tired. And I'm yawning.
So I'm boring you.
Okay. Well,
the look she just gave me. Oh yeah, by the way, I don't know if we mentioned this. Like, we figured out a way to like see each other by getting webcams. So now I can like see you, because before we didn't have webcams, so it was literally just audio when we were like recording, and now I can see you. So hi.
Yeah, and it's easier because that way I don't interrupt and you don't interrupt, and
I know.
Like being in person.
I know. I feel bad because, like, thank God we had these cameras, because the first thing Francisco said before we even started recording our last episode, he's like, you guys sound exactly the same.
Yeah, sorry.
It's like, sorry.
We have plans to do video format eventually, like a live format. So stay tuned.
It's going to happen.
Yep. We're going to figure out a way.
And then you'll finally know who's fucking talking.
Yeah, sorry.
So
I'll say this much, at least for the episodes now, Megan's audio quality is slightly better than mine. So that's how you could tell us apart.
What do you mean it's better?
Well, because you're the one. Well, no, because you're the one recording. Mine just sounds like a little more muffled. And since you're the host, it sounds a little more clear. So
I think yours sounds fine. I don't know why. Well,
it's fine, but there's a difference that I can hear. So
fair enough.
But that's an easy way now to tell us apart. Like, listen, if someone wants to go back and edit all of our old videos and literally type out who is who, we'll pay you. So
I know. If you would like to earn some extra money, email us at thegeminiarchives@gmail.com. We're still fucking waiting for the email, everyone. Can someone just say hi, something.
Well,
tell us that, just be like, fuck you, anything. Like, just send us a goddamn email. Please.
like, fuck you.
Yeah, just send us an email. Dear Gemini Archives, fuck you. Like, that's all I need,
And it's like, love Craig. And it's like, thanks, Craig.
Yeah, literally. Thanks, Craig.
We don't know who Craig is, but he told us to go fuck ourselves, apparently.
Craig Christ.
Craig Christ. Oh, if you get that reference, too, we could definitely be friends.
Anyway.
Yeah, I'm fucking Craig. Craig Christ. So funny.
Lauren.
Just look up Craig Christ, and it's so funny. I'm not going to link it, because you'll find it really fast.
Yes. So with that being said, we're going to go to a quick break.
Yes.
And then
this is a short intro, and then we're going to spend the bulk of it talking about all the Backrooms and Liminal Land, all the stuff we've been waiting to talk about.
Yes. And the Backrooms being like the pinnacle of like analog horror, basically, is one of the first and still one of the best. And at least we think.
Well, it's the pinnacle for the liminal space, like, fad that's going on right now. It started analog horror, but it's more than just the liminal space. Like, analog horror is much scarier than just the Backrooms. So
yeah, there are a ton of series now, like tons,
and I love it. I love watching analog horrors because,
me too.
It's better than I'm just gonna say it's better than horror movies that are coming out now. Because you have your classics, the Halloweens and Nightmare on Elm Street and Friday the 13th. Like, that's cool and everything, but like
The Exorcist,
and it's like, those are great and everything, but like these analog horror people are just like, because it's more interactive than just here's a movie on the big screen. It's like there's websites, there's hidden messages and coding, there's all these little like Easter eggs strewn about all over the place, and it's just so cool.
It's way more immersive, we'll say.
Yeah, it makes your mind work more than the typical horror movie. Yeah, because it scares you, and it's like, oh, that was an adrenaline rush for a couple hours. Like, that's fine. But like these analog series, they make me stay up at night and think for a little while. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like, what is this for a real thing?
They seem much more real because you get more involved with them, and it like involves actual websites and case files and all this shit. And it's like,
yeah, they build a universe
to the point where people who aren't aware that it's an analog horror series will look at it and be like, wait, did this shit really happen? Like, it really blurs that line between reality and, you know, being fake. So that's why I like it personally. And it's, you know, much more personalized and much more like, you know, they have all this time to like really pick apart the elements and go, okay, you know, because they're also working with a way smaller budget than like a big, you know, horror production or whatever for a horror movie. So they are basically trying to get that same effect with like a fraction of the resources. And to me, that's much more like impactful than, you know, someone spending, you know, hundreds of thousands of dollars on a fucking movie production. And it's just, you know, when the jump scares are coming, it's very obvious. The plot is slow. It's like, okay, like, can we, like, there are some movies where it's like 30 minutes of plot and then the scary stuff happens. And it's like, why did we have to sit through all of that? You know, like, and I know they're trying to attempt to like create a bond with like the main character and stuff like that, but there are other ways to do it other than 30 minutes of just watching them go through their day, you know? Like, I watched like the newest Exorcist movie, and that's kind of how it was. And it was a very slow build up, but then once it built up, it was like, it was insane. I actually really like that movie. I'm not even gonna lie, but
I need to watch it still. I haven't watched it.
Do you watch it? It's
okay. I'm gonna watch it today.
Do it. And it's got the mom and Reagan from, you know, the very first movie are in there too. Linda Blair. So, you know, it's so there, it ties back to like all the other Exorcist movies without, you know, it harping too much on it. So I thought it was really well done, but my only complaint with like that movie and other newer horror movies is that it takes forever for like the scary stuff to happen. It's like, okay, let's go, you know? Like, and I know they're doing it to like create buildup and stuff like that, but buildup shouldn't be 30 minutes. It should be like 10 at most, you know?
Right.
Like, that's too much buildup.
Yes.
So that's
Speaking
like
of too much buildup.
Yeah, I know. Sorry. We're going to go to a break now.
Sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off. You can finish what you're saying.
No, that's all I had to say.
Okay.
I'm putting in a song from Black Sorcery, World Demands Cruelty. They just put out a new EP like a few weeks ago, I want to say, on the 24th of May, whenever the hell that was. He just put it out and it fucking rules. Like, it is amazing. And this song especially. So I'm going to put that in. We're going to have some good fucking black metal on the show today in between segments. So I'm excited about it. So I'm going to put that in. And then when we come back, we are finally going to talk about the Backrooms.
Hell yeah. We're so ready.
I'm so ready. So, all right, here's Black Sorcery. We'll be right back.
Yeah!
And welcome back, everybody.
Welcome back.
So, it is time.
Let's cue the music.
Yeah, I was going to say, cue the music right here. We are setting the mood and the tone, and we are going to start by talking about the Backrooms. It has been everywhere lately, so it's a little bit of a topical thing that we're doing today. Like, normally we don't, keep up with current events, but today we're doing, well, I guess it's still not current because the series we're talking about came out in 2019. Was that when it came out?
I think so, 2019.
Yes, 2019. And, so it's been about 5 years since it came out, but the series was based on a post on, was it 4chan?
Yeah.
It was a post on 4chan with the original Backrooms image, and someone just wrote like a creepypasta around it, basically. And that post.
Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
Creepypastas, for those who don't know what it is, it's basically like, it's like a copy pasta, which is like, it's something that gets shared all over the internet, kind of like memes, but it's like a horror version of it. So like Slender Man and The Rake and Jeff the Killer, they're all very popular creepypastas, but
right.
It just basically means like a horror, like a fake horror story that gets passed around the internet. So just for context, for anyone who had no idea what a creepypasta was, they've been around forever, since I've been on the internet. So
yeah, like a million years ago when we were, amongst the dinosaurs. So
yes.
So this series, the original video series was created by Kane Pixels, and the wild thing is that he was 16 when he made this series.
Yeah,
16.
Really young.
Dude, when I was 16, I was getting drunk in the woods and being a degenerate.
Yeah,
16.
Same.
It's fucking crazy. And it's the alleged first liminal analog horror series to exist. Not the first analog horror series, but a liminal version of that.
Yes.
So, because the first analog series, I think, goes all the way back to 2009. I don't remember what it's called, but there's one, they can be traced all the way back to 2009. An analog horror series, analog meaning using basically antiquated versions of technology. And analog horror series will have a lot of VHS tracking lines and garbled audio and stuff like that, from technology that's basically defunct now. And usually they take place in the 70s, 80s, 90s, where that technology was prevalent, even as far back as the 60s, I think, because of the Walton Files was the 60s. So
early 70s.
Early 70s, we'll say.
Well, actually, it was the concept was thought of in the mid 60s, but then the actual restaurant was born in the 70s.
That's right. So that's what we mean by analog horror. So it's a very specific style of horror. One of the first big examples of it was the Blair Witch Project, we'll say.
Yeah, well, that was one of the first found footage analog horror things too, so kind of like Paranormal Activity and stuff like that. For anyone who's never seen the Blair Witch, I would be shocked, but I get it. Some people don't see stuff like that.
If you haven't seen the movie, you at least know the meme of the girl close up with snot running out of her face and fucking that in itself is a meme. But so this 2019, he makes this series based off this 4chan post that someone made around a creepypasta and talking about no clipping into the Backrooms. And no clipping is I learned recently it's a video game term.
Yeah, so when you no clip in a game, basically you have free reign to move anywhere in the game, outside the barriers of the game and all over the place. So clipping out of
some people would call it a glitch, but sometimes it's intentional.
Yeah, there's console commands that you can no clip out of the game. I do it all the time for certain stuff. And basically, no clipping out of reality means like you're just walking along and then all of a sudden, bam, different dimension. Like you step in like an area where you can no clip basically and just fall through the floor and like this, whatever, wherever you are,
Yeah. And I think the first video in the series, that's exactly what happens. Like someone is just like, they're filming and walking along or whatever, and then boom, they fall through the ground and they're in the back room suddenly.
Right.
And there's a couple of different found footage videos in this series kind of spread, within, and that's exactly what happens. Like some girl's in her garage and she notices like things are disappearing into the ground, and then she goes to measure to see how deep it goes, and then she falls in with the tape measure and everything else. Like, it's just a wild concept, that you're just walking along, everything's fine, and all of a sudden, bam, you're somewhere else. Like,
yep,
terrifying. And so the origin of all this basically is, there's a company and they're called Async Research Institute. And they're from like the 80s. I think they were started in the 80s. And how they ended up finding the backrooms was they developed this machine. They call it the threshold. It's just like this giant door. And
yeah, it's like a doorway.
And it's supposed to like connect you to different realities and different planes of existence, basically.
Yeah, different dimensions, basically.
Yeah, different dimensions. That's a better word. And in 1989, they generated a new dimension that ended up being the backrooms. And when they saw this, they saw it as an opportunity to utilize it for storage. There's an overpopulation problem. They don't have room for a lot of stuff, and they got to meet supply and demand. So they're like, oh, good, this is an opportunity for us to store goods and stuff like that. And they sent in a couple of researchers, and one of them, and what the hell is his name? What's his last name? Peter Tench gets separated. So it's 3 men, and then Peter gets separated from them. He kind of wanders to the right just a little too far and ends up somewhere else. He's lost.
And one of the rules is to never go in alone. You need at least 3 people to be in at one time for that reason. So they followed the rules, but he veered off for just a second and then gone, because he heard like people like out, like he was in public somewhere, like it sounded like people like eating at a restaurant or something. And then he went to go ask like the other 2 guys, like, are you hearing this? Gone. And I think what that was, and this is something that, gets talked about later on in the videos, is the backrooms kind of propels you through time. So what you feel like is like 5 minutes is actually like 2 months. You know what I mean?
Right. And he was gone for so long, they actually proclaimed him dead because they couldn't find him, and had a funeral and everything. So yeah, and that's like more towards the end of the video. They end up, being reunited with him, and they keep him there because they didn't want to like look bad or anything like that. So yeah, and that's like towards like the end of the series, they like unfold that whole story about like, he gets reunited. They keep him because they don't want to like, get the word out. They already proclaimed him dead. They didn't want to look bad. And he ends up escaping, and then like while he's running away, he like trips and like breaks his neck and dies anyway. So it's fucking crazy. Allegedly. So it's fucking crazy, and when they initially find the backrooms, they kind of dubbed like the parts of the backrooms where you could like still see the threshold and everything as like the null zones, I think was the term that they used.
Yeah.
And so those are basically the parts where you're in the backrooms, but you're still within vision. Basically, you're still close enough to the threshold that you don't go too far in. And you see them like kind of put up like barriers and stuff like that to, tell people like, don't go beyond this point, or we don't know what the hell's going to happen to you. Like, and they kind of go in far enough to where they had vehicles driving at one point with like loads of cargo and stuff like that.
That was the plan. That in another video, it was basically like an async like company video, and they were talking about their plans for the back rooms, like what they were gonna put in there, and eventually they were like gonna increase the size of the threshold so trucks can go in there and they could start storing like large quantities of stuff. You know, that's the plan.
Yeah.
So for now it's people size, so they can't get trucks in there yet, but the plan is to make it bigger so they can get trucks in there.
Yeah. So you see some of that, and that's why when Peter's reunited, he thinks he's somewhere else because he sees all this stuff that's been added in and built and stuff like that. And he didn't realize, he thought he was only gone for a few minutes, but months had passed, you know, and they actually caught him on one of the security cameras, like tripping one of their alarms. And they were like, what the fuck? You know, it's crazy, you know, and we're not going to divulge the whole series. We're going to have it linked so you can go and watch it and, you know.
Yeah, but I just think this story is so powerful of just like how people have just destroyed literally anything they could get their hands on. You know what I mean? Like, instead of just leaving the back rooms as it is and leaving it alone, they have to use it to their advantage by putting all this garbage in there that isn't meant to be in there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
and then, oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was just saying, like, way to, like, you know, ruin something that, you know, is meant to be left alone. Sorry, go ahead.
Well, no kidding. And then on top of all of that, there's the horror element still of this thing that exists that, you know, you see in the found footage videos. And there's another found footage one with a researcher from Async. Like, and he ends up, who the hell knows where he is? Like, it's like a home complex. Like, it's just like a bunch of houses, and, you know, he goes into one of the houses. It's fucking wild. And everyone that, you know, in the found footage videos is met with like this thing that like chases them out, and it looks like a pile of electrical tape. That's what it looks like. And like, it makes this just god awful noise, and it stalks people, and it's relentless. Like, you can't get away from it. And I don't know if they gave the electrical tape guy a specific name, but that's what I call him, because that's what he looks like to me.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's just, then on top of everything else, you're in this weird place, and I think they only show like some certain parts of it like one time. Like, there's one of the found footage places you see the pool rooms, but like briefly, you know. And quick side tangent, that's a whole other thing that's been circulating currently.
The pool rooms, yeah,
it's the game pools.
Yeah.
So, and they put out a demo version for it, but I think the full version is out.
Yeah.
Right. So you're basically, that's what it is. You walk through pool rooms, and it just gets weirder and weirder and weirder, and then eventually you get out.
And it started from another liminal space concept of just like this room with the pool in it, and it's all white tile on the floors, the walls, the ceilings, everything. And it's like the back rooms, like, you know, someone found, I don't know where that original picture is from, but like there's tons of pool room pictures, like liminal space, like pool rooms and stuff, but that one's the most common that I've seen. And that's what they based the game off of. It's just an endless, you know, liminal place of just like pools, indoor pools everywhere. And
you know what? It's so funny because, and I said this, I think, in a previous episode, I think that the pool rooms are fucking relaxing as shit. Like, I would die in there. Like, like if they just play like some quiet, like vaporwave and stuff like that, kind of like what we have going right now, like, I would die happy. That is just, because Lauren and I swear to God, when we were kids, that is all we wanted to do, was go swimming and be in pools, and just, we were like mermaids, you know? And so the idea of like just endless rooms of fucking pools, like, yes, please, you know? The one thing I wanted someone to try, but no one has done from what I've seen so far, is just sit in one of the pools and see what happens. Like, don't move. Just see if something comes to you. No one's done that. Everyone just kept going. And I'm like, I want to see what happens. So if I end up playing it, that's what I'm gonna do. So, you know, that's just a small element of the Backrooms too. And I think that was more so just like an ode to like that series of fucking pictures that used to exist on forums online. And
it basically and there's a game called Escape the Backrooms too, which plays off of this as well. Right. And basically the Backrooms is, you know, a different dimension, you know, from where we are. And the point of it is to keep going deeper and deeper and deeper, and you end up in different, you know, dimensions, like the pool rooms dimension, and the one you're talking about with all the houses, the home dimension. And there's another famous one where it looks like you're in a hotel and it's like all these buildings stacked up, but there's like a courtyard in the middle. That's another really famous one that is correlated to the Backrooms. I call that the Rear Window dimension, because that's literally the movie Rear Window. So so there's a ton of them, and I think that's the whole point of the Backrooms. And don't quote me on this, but this is from what I've seen from all the Backrooms stuff that I've looked up. Is like the Backrooms is the beginning, but the farther in you get, like there's all these different places, and you get lost in there. I mean, really lost. Yeah. So it's like it's supposed to give you the feeling like that you're lost and you're never gonna find your way out. Yeah. So, and it does a good job of doing that, because I watched like one playthrough of someone playing the entire Escape the Backrooms game. Lord Jesus above, if that was real, I would have died of a panic attack. Like, well, me too. And like, you know, at least that game, there's like an end enclosure and stuff, and people do put like a cap on it, but the original concept is supposed to be like, it is unbelievably endless with like, you know, these fluorescent lights and yellow floors and walls, and it just keeps going and going and going, and you don't know where you are, you know, forever, basically. Yeah. You just die in there. And we did deduce that that wallpaper is straight from the 70s. So you'll see it in the video that I linked if you decide to watch it. It's straight 70s, and it was a furniture store. Somebody found a picture of it with furniture in it, like when it was still active. And, you know, God bless the Wayback Machine, you know? Yeah. I don't know who the hell invented the Wayback Machine, but God, I've been able to find websites I'd completely forgotten about because of that fucking thing. Dude, no kidding. You know, someone pulled it, and you'll see it in the video too. Someone pulled up pictures of, you know, how it was operating, and then it was supposed to be like an indoor racetrack, and then it got shut down. Mm-hmm. So it never came to be. But dude, I know, it's the imagery alone. It's so funny how something so minimal and so like basic is so impactful. Mm-hmm. And the whole point of a liminal space too is to invoke like a feeling of like nostalgia in you. Like it feels like you've been to that place, but you haven't. So that's why people, especially like around our age and older, are obsessed with it, because it's a lot of like 80s and 90s spaces. You know what I mean? Like the pool rooms, for example, like that is totally something I would have grew up with, you know, like going to a hotel and there's a pool in there that looks exactly like that. And then like, you know, it's in all these like, from what I see like on Twitter, I follow like people who post like strictly just liminal space pictures. It's a lot of like old playscape rooms with like giant slides and ball pits, like Chuck E. Cheese style, and you know, like all these like different things that like they like tug at my, you know, childhood heartstrings, you know, but it's a place I've never been before. Yeah. And I think that's just a crazy thing, because when people look at places like the Backrooms and stuff, they feel like they've been there or they've seen something so similar to it. And it piques the curiosity, and that's why like I feel like a lot of people are very interested in it, you know? Yeah. And like, you know, because most liminal spaces, like we had discussed before, are kind of like, they're like thresholds to like different places, or they're transitional spaces from like previous eras, basically. Like you're not going to find rooms like that anymore, but they're still like they're, you know, like I've said before, like giant ghosts, you know, that just still exists. And it's a very bizarre but very intriguing like thing that's come to exist. And I don't know if it's manifested just because of you know, our generation, the millennial generation,
being super nostalgic and just, you know, really valuing, you know, our past and things that we, you know, had an experience growing up. Like, if I think about, excuse me, quick side tangent, I think about like the generation after us, like Gen Z, and they don't really have a lot of things like that, you know? They don't have a lot of like tangible, like, things that they can go back to that invoke memory and stuff like that. They're kind of like the beginning of the iPad generation, and they don't really have much to go back and be like, oh, that makes me feel so nostalgic, you know?
Well, the beginning of Gen Z for sure, like 96 to like 2000s, I would say, like them for sure. But like younger Gen Z, they have no clue. And Gen A, like they are just, Gen A's still too young to have that kind of thing yet, but you know, but like the older Gen Z, they could still, you know.
Yeah, and there's a reason why like Gen Z kind of like, you know, loves things that we loved when we were, you know, kids. It's because they don't have their own like kind of era to look back on, basically, you know. I feel like it just after the 90s, like things became much more, what's the word I'm looking for? Like not as tangible, you know, everything was digital, everything was like disposable. There was very like little attachment, because I think about like, you know, just something like going to McDonald's and getting a McDonald's toy when you were, you know, in the 90s.
Yeah.
Like, and that's the thing, McDonald's toys still exists, you know, but you don't see kids getting all worked up over them anymore, because why would they when they have like, you know, a 3-screen setup and like fucking Call of Duty to play and all this crazy shit.
That's what I was gonna say. They have everything at their fingertips now with iPads and iPhones and, you know, TV, like everything, you know, YouTube. They don't really care about tangible things anymore, you know, unless... Oh, sorry.
I was just gonna say, like, a little plastic toy of Daffy Duck isn't gonna fucking, you know, pique their interest the same way, because they're so like desensitized. But like when we were kids, we would find like, you know, we would play with it for like a week. And
I know, I was thinking about that recently, actually, how we were just never bored. We had so much stuff we could do, like, and it wasn't even like, yeah, it was the start of like computers at home and stuff and like AOL and everything, but we never really played on the computer much, not until we got into middle school, you know what I mean? And like,
yeah,
we
not really.
Yeah, it, like we would play with like dolls and board games and all kind, like stuffed animals. We would play school, we would draw, we could literally just go outside. Like we used to play softball, so Meg and I would like go throw softballs in the backyard, and you know, like we did a lot as kids, you know.
Right.
We didn't, and you and I were just built in like play buddies, like we were never bored, you know.
True.
So
we always had something to do. And like, you know, I feel like, you know, the generation now, yeah, they still do that and it's still like a thing, but it's like the ratio has kind of like switched. Like, you know, we had computer games and stuff, but we'd only play for like an hour or two. You know, we had TV, but we'd only watch for like a couple hours coming home from school and stuff like that. And because we wanted to go play, we wanted to go do things. Like sitting in front of the TV was like boring for us, you know? Yep. And now as an adult, it's my favorite thing to do. But like,
yeah,
you know, just because I'm exhausted all the time. But you know, it's like, now I feel like it's the opposite. Like, you know, kids aren't like playing the way they used to, and they're just spending more time, you know, having way more screen time because everything's. And honestly, I think about it, if I were a kid and someone handed me an iPad and I could touch it and make something happen, my mind would have shot through the roof, you know?
Right.
Like, what is this sorcery, you know? And, you know, I don't even know how we got onto this tangent, but, I know. So my point of all that being like, you know, so I guess part of the nostalgia and part of the appeal of like liminal spaces and things like that is it just reminds us of like a simpler time before we are overrun by fucking, you know, technology. And everything became so detached. And, you know, you look at like the McDonald's playscape from the 90s, and it's bright and colorful. It's so like the artwork, and it's crazy. And you look at it now and it just looks like a dystopian version of that. Everything's so much more simple, and we're going to streamline everything, but it just looks like
there's no character or personality. It's just empty,
It reminds me of Halloween Town 2, where everyone became normal in Halloween Town and everything was gray and all they did was sort their socks. That's what it feels like now. I swear to God, like, it went from this colorful, awesome, like, intriguing Halloween Town to just boring, fucking gray, normal people. And, that's kind of what it feels like, at least for our generation, who watched that evolution unfold before us. So I think that's why this is so deeply appealing, and why a lot of us, especially people our age, would be so okay with getting lost in the back rooms. Like, and you see them on YouTube too, like all these people that go and explore like old movie theaters and restaurants, and like I saw someone explore like a Burger King from like the early 90s. And,
I saw that too.
Yeah, and just like, how it was still like, it looked exactly like how it did then, and I'm like, wow, things were so different.
And one of the best ones I saw was Uncharted Travel. Brennan, who knows Dan Bell, he went to a diner that was perfectly preserved from like the 80s or something.
Holy shit!
And it was like a 70s 80s diner, just with all the stuff still there. And I was like, wow. It was just really dusty, and the ceiling was falling in a bit, but like otherwise you wouldn't have been able to tell that it closed down.
That's fucking crazy.
Yeah, like, I'm gonna link that. That was a really cool one.
But yeah, excuse me. I think that's that's why it appeals to us so much, because it makes us feel like we're transporting back in time. Like we're quite literally revisiting a part of our childhood. And you see with kids that grew up in the 80s and the 70s and the 60s, because I've seen our mother be that way. And by the way, today's her birthday. Happy birthday, Mom.
Happy birthday, Mom.
I've seen Mom talk about it where she's like, oh my God, this looks exactly like how it did when I was a kid. And so it's not just our generation that's like that. Ours is definitely the most documented because it's all over the internet. But
for sure,
like my mom, like there are times like she's taken us to places and it still looked like how it did when she was a kid, like in the 70s. And she's like, oh yeah, this makes me like, for her, her nostalgia is like the shag carpet, the, olive green furniture, like bell bottoms, fucking think of just Match Game in the 70s. Like that's her nostalgia, know? So it's, and our father too, who grew up in the same era. But it's funny how like that perspective kind of changes. So that's why something like the Backrooms is deeply appealing to our age group, because that's what we just know. It may not resonate as well with someone younger than us or older than us, but it still could resonate because it's a cool concept. I know I definitely, anything based in the 80s, even though I wasn't around in the 80s yet, like I still, it's got that same feel, and that's why I think this is so impactful, because a 16-year-old kid, which is still insane to me, like,
who hasn't even experienced that level of nostalgia like we have, but he perfectly captured it. And like, I think that's just the coolest thing. And transitioning to Liminal Land now, talking about nostalgia and everything, the concept of this, and I would call it analog horror. Even there's some videos, but it's on a website. It's not just a YouTube channel. It is a full-blown website with documents and videos and all kinds of stuff that are basically lost archives of a park, a amusement park called Liminal Land. And this hit like a thing with me because Nick and Ryan are close to our age. You know what I mean? Like we grew up the same.
I looked it up. I think Ryan is 2 years younger than us, so he's 29, and then Nick is 25.
So close.
They're a little bit younger than us, but basically the same generation.
Well, Brian more so than Nick then. Nick's on the Gen Z side, but Brian is not, because I think he's a year older than my husband, so.
Yeah. So, yeah, when they announced this, I was so excited because I'm like, they are going to slay this, and they fucking did. Like, you know, there are videos and stuff that, you know, if you go through the archives on the website, I think it's only about like 5 or 6 of them, and they're all very short, but you know, it's a multimedia, like immersive type of series, and it's about basically an amusement park that opened in 1975 in Lake Valley, New Mexico. It's a fictitious park. This is all fictitious, by the way. This didn't actually happen.
Yeah, they opened it in a small town to bring it more like tourism, I guess, from what I'm gathering, because it's not a popular destination at all.
Right. So, basically, the park was opened by the Sharon Company. Correct me if I'm saying that wrong, someone. They were attempting to directly compete with Disneyland, so in California, Disney. And they were also looking to experiment with the park goers to see how far they could push their limits, basically. So park goers would go to this amusement park and unknowingly are being tested. And
because one of the founders of the park, his name was Dr. Schlittenberg, is a doctor. So he was the, you know, basically the brains behind, hey, let's turn these rides into experiments and test how people react on these rides. And the one that I really want to highlight, because if you want to know like the full we're not going to go into full detail about this. I highly recommend checking out the website. It was like an hour and a half of my life, you know, and it's really cool. And I highly suggest looking through everything. But this is the one thing I really want to touch on. There's a ride called, what was it? The laugh track.
Yep.
And it was a roller coaster. And basically the whole point of this ride was to see how people react when they were basically like in an area where they, you know, are in compression induced laughter. So like the roller coaster induced laughter into them, and they wanted to push them to see like how long they could keep those people laughing on that ride, you know?
Right.
And what happened was it ended up distorting their faces really bad and causing like, and there's a whole article in the archives about this, how the effects of prolonged laughter like is actually really bad for people. Like, yeah, it's nice to laugh a little bit, but like if you do it for minutes at a time, like a long time, it actually will like fuck your brain up and stuff. And yeah, and I thought this was the most interesting part, because they didn't go into some detail about some of the other rides, but they really like, they had a whole article about this, like a 1-page article about the human effects, you know, on prolonged laughter. And the fact that they were, oh, sorry.
I was gonna say, and I think they did that just because this is very reminiscent of the Smile tapes, which is another like analog horror series. And because what happens is, you know, the prolonged laughter, they were showing in one of the videos how someone would look before going on, and then they come off and their face is all distorted into like a smile, like Jeff the Killer style. And that's something that happened in the Smile tapes, except you get infected by a virus and it causes your face to distort like that. So I thought that was a very nice ode, like nod towards that series. And I can definitely see the parallels in that, if that was even their intention. I think it was, though.
And that article is a great read about just like their mindset into it, and like, you know, how they were just putting innocent people on this ride unknowingly. They unknowingly were going on there and being tested to see, like, you know, how that laughter fucks their body up. And like, it's crazy, because you would think like going to an amusement park and getting on a roller coaster. It's like fun for a lot of people, but it was actually a death trap. And I think that contrast was really cool, you know, and that's one of the things I really wanted to point out. That and the other part of the park called Home.
Yes. So I
was just saying, I think that was probably the coolest part of the entire thing, was the home concept of the park.
And if you look through the archives too, they really emphasize like home a lot. And home standing for, I wrote this down. It stands for holistic and opportune mutual experience. So like how the park is, basically you enter the park and it looks like a normal amusement park with like normal amusement park rides, quote unquote. And then underneath the park, they have this whole entire complex called Home. And it's just rows and rows of like dystopian, like suburban houses, basically. And it's got like a fake sky, fake grass. So it feels like you're outside, but you're actually underground.
Right. And the way they designed these homes was to invoke comfort in the people. So they're playing up on the liminal concept by, you know, using, and this takes place in the 80s too, I believe. So they use like 1950s decor, because that would be the, you know, nostalgic feeling in the 80s is like 50s style, you know what I mean? And so it was a lot of like brightly colored rooms and, you know, tacky record players, you know, stuff like that, old kitchen appliances and like all this stuff. So when you look at the pictures of Home, like the homes there, they all look like that, you know, and I thought that was so fucking cool. And they basically use it as a way for park goers to never leave, you know?
Yeah. And like, there was definitely a similarity with like the Backrooms found footage, because there was a video where someone was exploring like the home complex and they went into one of the homes and it just got deeper and deeper and more like convoluted, and you know, there was like warnings like don't go too far, and then they were like, well, fuck that, and they went far anyway, and something was chasing them out, and it just, that reminded me of the Backroom. So that was a good ode there. I saw a lot of similarities between this and like other different like creepy like analog horror series, or just like creepy videos in general from the internet, because you know, a lot of people went missing at the park because they get lost in the home complex. And one of the videos that they have in the archives was a missing persons like broadcast, basically, that mimicked the famous Joanna Lopez broadcast from like the late 80s, early 90s, I think, somewhere in there.
Yeah.
And God almighty, if you want to not sleep at night, go Google that, because I watched it. First of all, the picture they use of her is so fucking scary, you know?
Yeah.
It's crude and highly contrasted as shit. I'm like, I can't believe they put that on. And this is a real thing that happened, like in real life, you know?
Yep.
And it was just wild to me that they aired something like that. And, you know, it's, they use that same style to show all the missing people from the park and stuff. And I just thought that was really cool too, you know? And the whole home complex thing. And, you know, there was other rides and stuff too. Like, they had their own like pool room, like tribute room basically. And, you know, people getting lost in that and kids getting injured and things like that. So basically how the story goes, is, you know, this park, it started to gain all this notoriety, and despite, you know, the missing people, like nothing was really done about it. Everything was kind of getting swept under the rug. Someone probably knew, like someone in power. That's what I'm assuming. And then finally, it was May 20th, 1989. They just shut it down for good. And they never gave like a definite reason. And it hasn't, you know, been inhabited ever since. It just kind of sits like desolate.
Oh, and we should mention too, and I'm pretty sure before this was an amusement park, it was a nuclear power plant.
Right.
So they built over a nuclear power plant where they did all kinds of fucking experiments there too. And they never mentioned that if that had any correlation to like what happened there, but you know, you can't rule that out because look at the, you know, fucking superhero trope, you know?
Right.
Spider-Man gets covered in acid and all of a sudden he's Spider-Man, you know? Like...
Well, right. And, you know, I will say too, like the style of the videos and everything else really reminded me of Local 58, which is one of our favorite episodes that we've ever done.
There was a news broadcast on there, and that, you know, Local 58 was a news station, you know, and
the training videos too reminded me of
videos.
Those.
Yeah, it was that was very reminiscent of Local 58. That's one of my favorites personally. Yeah, that's one of the first ones we talked about on the podcast, actually.
I think it's the first one we talked about.
Yeah, if you want to go back and listen to that episode, highly recommended. It's too good. I love Local 58.
I know, it's the best. And like, you know, and I think Nexpo, Ryan, really, he had like a whole fucking like hour and a half video about Local 58 alone. So, you know, and I think that's the first time we ever mentioned him on this channel, but you know, there's plenty of other people that have talked about this, and there's still ongoing series, by the way. Like Liminal Land is still ongoing, you know.
Yeah, it's not finished yet. So this is what's on there right now, but they're adding more to it eventually, you know.
And this is as of June 6, 2024, we're recording this. So
yeah, so if maybe we'll visit this in like a year or two if they really make some significant like updates to it, and we'll talk about it again. But
yeah, if you guys find this stuff interesting, just because we love it, you know, and I just think it's so cool how someone can take like something so small or take inspiration from something else and kind of blow it up into its own universe, basically its own entity. And, you know, stylistically, like they definitely nailed the analog horror aspect of it with, you know, using old equipment, like old videos, like even just like the documents that they have posted on the website, like the flyers and pamphlets and stuff like that. It's very reminiscent of that 70s like minimalistic style, and you know, like it's very like it's a big nod to that time, you know, and how things were. And I think what adds to the horror element of it is because it's familiar to us, you know, so it makes it seem more real. So, you know, that's why when, you know, even just like Five Nights at Freddy's came out, you know, and we talked about the Walton Files that took inspiration from that really, I remember thinking when this is 2014, you know, before the hype with all the analog horror and all like, you know, the shit like that, I just remember thinking like, this scares the shit out of me because this is what I did as a child, you know?
Yeah.
Like when we were kids, how often did we go to like, you know, like even just like a YMCA and use their pool, you know?
Well, exactly. And how often did we go to Chuck E. Cheese? I mean, where we used to live, we were right near a Chuck E. Cheese, and my mom would take me, Megan, and my cousin there when she had to watch him and just let us run around. You know, we were at Chuck E. Cheese a lot as kids.
Yeah. We were in arcades a lot. We were at amusement parks too. We were 5 minutes from, you know, one of the oldest amusement parks in the country. So we'd always go to amusement parks, you know, like stuff like that.
And we traveled to Florida, you know, going to Disney and SeaWorld and Universal and everything. We went to amusement parks all the time.
Yeah. So that's why, like, you know, with things like this, it really does hit the nostalgia factor, because this is just all we did as kids. Like, we didn't sit at home and fucking watch YouTube. And I sound like I'm aging myself, but we didn't. Like, you know, if we were watching TV, like we were watching Nickelodeon, we were watching cartoons usually. Yeah. Or, you know, we'd had some VHSs. I shouldn't say it. We had like all the VHSs. And sometimes we would put on a movie, you know? But like, I don't really remember like being glued to the TV as a kid.
No, because we couldn't sit still. We always wanted to be doing something too.
Yeah. And like, I think I watch more cartoons now as an adult than I did as a child. You know, like it's crazy how, you know, that element of like just a lot of people's childhood is like still, you know, prevalent, and how it gets expressed in stuff like this, you know, like I saw like, oh, this is about an amusement park, like Liminal Land. I was like, oh, cool. And then it's like, oh, wait a second, you know, like it takes it. That's why I think it's more effective, going back to what we were saying earlier. It's more effective than modern horror movies because it's relatable. It's easier to digest because it's not like a 2-hour, 3-hour investment, you know? Like some videos can be long, but they're usually not that long, you know?
Yeah.
And it's more easily digestible for us, especially nowadays. Everyone's so used to like TikTok and stuff where videos are like under a minute. You know, like we're not taking in long form content anymore. And like, that's part of the reason why when we were kids, we never really sat through movies because we had to sit and pay attention and we didn't want to. So,
right.
You know, it's just like, that's what makes it so impactful for us. And that's why we were so excited to do this episode, because
yes,
it's like an integral part of our youth. And you know, we've talked about this plenty of times on the podcast before, like nostalgia aspects. We had a whole episode about like just like the summertime when we were kids and like playing video games. And
that summertime when I was a kid, when we were kids, is my favorite memory of being a kid. Being at our aunt's house with their cousins, swimming in their old pool and sitting in their basement and they're playing like Sonic, you know, or like Star Fox 64.
Or like Super Mario 64, I remember.
Yeah.
And just, I remember the Dire Docks, like music would kick on and be like, okay, everything rules, you know? And just like.
Wait, can we put it in for just a minute? We got to put in that song.
Yes. So this one. Yeah, it's just crazy how, you know, even though it's supposed to be scary and there's supposed to be a horror element to it, it doesn't really freak us out the way it should, just because there's that nostalgia aspect to it. And, you know, like this is the kind of stuff that we love, you know, like we thoroughly enjoyed our youth, you know, and, you know, anyone that was born 2 decades before me, you know, whatever, like they would say the same thing. Like, yeah, like,
right.
I remember I used to go and get whatever, because I remember like our mom telling us that, like, I remember this only used to be 75 cents or whatever. Now it's like everything's so expensive. Right. So, you know, different aspects of nostalgia for different people. But for us, like, I feel like, and people might disagree with this, but I'm going to say it. We grew up in the golden era of technology, you know, because it wasn't too advanced. It was still like, and it
developing.
Didn't, like, yeah, and it didn't overrun our lives, you know, like we still were able to do things, quote unquote, the old-fashioned way, you know, and we still, you know, had time. We went and played outside, you know, we didn't, you know, waste our lives away in front of a TV or anything like that. And like, you know, I'm guilty of doing that now, honestly, because it's just easy and accessible now. And like, you know, that's why, like, I almost like miss that simpler time. Like, I almost wish technology sometimes wasn't so advanced, because, you know, we'll probably never have that back again. And I think that's what part of the liminal concept as a whole is about, is just like, well, say goodbye to your youth. You know, there's like almost like a sadness to it too. So yeah,
like it's memories of a world that isn't anymore, you know. And I think that's like the sad part of it. It's like, God, we are never going to look like this again. Life will never look like how it used to be 20, 30 years ago ever again. It's always changing. It's always evolving. It's always developing. And people will always say like, oh, things are just getting worse and worse, and we're straying farther from what we used to know and blah, blah, blah. And like, I remember it being 2012 and I thought we hit the pinnacle of worst. It's like before the pandemic and before, you know, all this shit happened, you know, it's like, you know,
and like now the only way to experience it is like, now they have like, you know, stuff like barcades, you know, with like old like arcade machines and stuff like that. And, you know, it's like, okay, I remember this time, but it's not the same, you know, like people are picking up on that nostalgia and still utilizing it, but it's not the same, you know, like, It's like SpongeBob with the oven mitts. It's not the same.
It's not the same.
So, you know, that's why I think we all love like these analog horror things, because it makes us feel directly connected, you know? Mm-hmm. And that's why, you know, we talked about in the previous episodes, we love like vaporwave and stuff like that, because it reminds us of that time. Mm-hmm. So, you know, it's like we're able to, you know, still hold on to that part of our youth, like the good part of it, you know? And there's a difference between living in the past and, you know, looking back on your youth. Like, we're not living in the past. We're not denying that, you know, like, things aren't happening now the way they're happening and stuff. I've been on TikTok before. Like, I get it, you know? Like, I'm not, you know, discrediting anything now. It's just, you know, that was just what we knew growing up for so long. And, like, it's just different now. So,
yep.
You know, that's why being able to, like, watch the Backrooms and, you know, finally finding where the Backrooms original photo came from, like, the internet erupted. It was like we found, like, the Fountain of Youth or something. Like,
yeah, literally. It's like, you know, next to Lenny Kravitz, you know, who was gatekeeping the Fountain of Youth. That man has not aged in 25 years. It's ridiculous.
Lauren.
Anyway.
It's true. Like, you know, and I say we. I had no part in this. I'm sorry. I'm not going to say we found it. You're going to notice that in that video I linked to. He says, we found it. You didn't do anything. Like,
yeah. Well, I think he's probably saying, like, we as a collective, like, as in the internet found it.
True.
So
no, it was like 2 people that found it. Thank you to those. They're credited in the video. So thank you to whoever you were.
Yes, thank you.
I think there was someone that took like a year and a half of their life to find this.
That's
like,
nuts.
It's insane. So, and that might be wrong. Don't quote me on that. But a long time.
After a week, I would have given up. You know?
Same. I'm never like persisted with something like that before, so
I know, good for them.
No kidding. But thank you for letting us talk about that. That was what I needed today. I feel like I could go smoke a cigarette right now because I'm so happy.
Dear God.
I'm just kidding. I've never smoked in my life. So with all that being said, we'll probably touch on some more analog horror things, you know, in the future. Maybe not, you know, so soon, because we've already talked about like 3 of them.
We're gonna take a break from analog horror and guests on the podcast for a little bit and just do something else. So
yeah,
if you haven't really been digging this stuff, just stick around, because, you know, we're gonna put some different stuff out very soon.
We'll probably, I don't know, because we're going to be on a hiatus for a while. We'll probably just come back and do a bullshit session, you know, whatever.
Yeah, we'll probably just do that, and then maybe talk about something. You know what I really want to do is lost media. Talk about some aspect of lost media. That's probably something we might do next, or I don't know. So if you're into like looking for shit that you thought disappeared from the base of the earth forever, stick around.
And if you are looking for something that you thought disappeared from the face of the earth forever and you want us to talk about it, email us at thegeminiarchives@gmail.com. Please. 1 email, just a word. Just type a single letter and send it to us. We will be so happy. Just something.
Even slurs, you know, I don't care. Do something.
Call me a fucking asshole. Anything. Like, I'm not inviting that in, by the way. Don't call me an asshole. But just send us an email, please. Just something. You know? We're just looking for a single email.
A sign of life. You know?
Yeah, right. But I digress. So thank you for letting us talk about that. I am so happy, because this is the stuff that, like we've said before, Lauren and I talk about all the time. You know, we just think it's interesting. We love the analog horror genre as a whole. Like, there's so many new ones coming out too. Like, there's one that, and I don't think this is a new one, but I saw Matt Pat on GT Live talk about Greylock.
Oh, yeah.
I haven't really watched it, but apparently it's supposed to be really good. So I might go watch that at some point today. But yeah, so thank you for letting us talk about that. What song are you putting in, Lauren?
I don't know if I put this in the podcast before, and if I did, I'm sorry, but I'm putting it in again if I did. There's a band that is no longer around called Mutilation Rites, and they fucking rip. You know, this is gonna be a black metal episode, and I'm putting in a song from them because I saw them one time in New England Metal Fest, and they were so good. I'm kind of picky about my black metal, so if it's black metal, then I like it, then that's a good thing, you know?
Yeah.
So
they were very good live. I will say that much.
Sucks that they're not really around anymore, but you know, still great band. Enjoy it. It's a long ass song, so I don't know if we'll play the whole thing, but
yeah,
you know.
I might cut it off after a while, but
yeah.
If I put in the whole thing and you listen to it, thank you. We appreciate it.
Yeah, and so do they, I'm sure.
So this is goodbye for now. We're taking a brief hiatus. It'll be about a month and a half or so before we upload a new episode again.
Yeah, month and a half. We'll see.
Thank you, everybody, so much for checking us out, sharing us around, you know, listening, you know, it just everything. Like, we appreciate it more than you know. You know, like I said, we don't care about how many people watch us and numbers and stuff like that, but just seeing a growing general interest in our podcast and what we talk about has been phenomenal. So thank you for that.
We appreciate it because we never, like we've said so many times, we never intended for this to gain traction at all. This was just for us to, you know, have a creative outlet, do something fun. Right. And the fact that people actually like it, though, is just a bonus. So we appreciate you all. So
we appreciate you, and we will see you in a little bit. Here's Mutilation Rites, and we will talk to you soon.
Bye.